Welcome, listener. Today, we're looking into a case that's, well, it's truly complex and frankly quite disturbing. We're going to talk about the story of John Lang. He was a man who became convinced, absolutely convinced he was being targeted by local authorities. He believed he'd exposed some serious corruption. His story ends tragically with a fiery death. Officially, it was ruled a suicide. But the circumstances surrounding it, the strange details, the premonitions, they're so chilling, they really force you to look deeper. John Lang, he lived in Fresno, California. He was a former Marine, and he was, let's say, outspoken critic of the Fresno Police Department there. And in 2016, he was found dead, multiple stab wounds inside his burning home. So the big question is, what exactly happened leading up to that night? What does it all mean?
Yeah, this isn't simple at all. It's a story where, the lines get really blurry. You have the whistleblower claiming persecution, and then you have this official conclusion that, honestly, a lot of people find hard to swallow. What's really critical here, I think, is just how many unsettling details are left hanging. It makes you really have to consider things from different angles, maybe even more sinister possibilities.
Yeah. Okay, let's unpack this from the start. Because John Lang wasn't just, complaining. He claimed he'd found evidence of some deeply troubling practices, like this thing he called the license plate scanning scam. He said Fresno PD officers were scanning plates in retail parking lots, often in poorer neighborhoods, he specified. They'd get violation hits, apparently, then wait, pull the drivers over a few blocks down the road in marked cars, and they'd claim it was just a routine driving patrol. Lang insisted this was about profit, plain and simple, and it unfairly hit Fresno's low-income residents. And that wasn't all he claimed to find. He also asserted that the local newspaper, the Fresno Bee, was sharing chat log data with Fresno law enforcement, specifically data from people who were critical online, critical of the local government, and especially the police. Lang was apparently posting evidence, or what he saw as evidence, of this corruption right there on the Fresno Bee's own website.
Right. And that raises a really important point, doesn't it? When someone starts actively calling out alleged wrongdoing, especially within a powerful institution, what happens next? What kind of reaction might they face? Our sources suggest an insider at the Fresno Bee, someone named Jody Murray, actually logged Lang's IP address and apparently gave his home address straight to the police. And that's the point where, for John Lang, things seem to take a really, really troubling turn.
Yeah, so after these revelations, Lang starts believing he's being watched. Constantly stalked, harassed by the local police. He begins uploading videos, puts them on YouTube, presenting what he clearly believed was solid proof of their intimidation tactics. Like, one of his first uploads supposedly showed a white truck. He said it belonged to Fresno PD personnel and claimed he got a hang-up call from the police department right after filming it. Then there was stranger stuff. Footage, he claimed, showed an officer kind of conditioning his dog so it would be submissive if they tried to get into his house.
Conditioning his dog? Wow.
Yeah. And footage, he insisted, showed them using an infrared thermal imager, to see if he was home. He was convinced they'd been breaking into his house when he wasn't there.
Yeah.
He even filmed a guy just sort of wandering outside his house, keeping an eye on him, then walking off while texting. Lang saw that as the guy contacting his buddies at the station. Then there was this neighbor incident he described as particularly suspicious and scary.
What happened there?
He was at a nearby house with two neighbors. One, noted as a registered sex offender, interestingly. Lang believed both were police informants. He started feeling uncomfortable, wanted to leave, but he claimed they tried to stop him, physically blocked him from getting into his own house through his gate. He actually had to climb over it to get in. He was absolutely certain they were talking to the police the whole time, coordinating.
That sounds incredibly stressful. And what happened after he got inside?
Well, that's just it. Once he got inside, he said his computer, his front door lock, even his printer, they'd clearly been tampered with. He was sure of it. He kept uploading footage, more videos of police officers just standing across from his house, openly. Lang directly linked this, claimed it was retaliation because he exposed that license plate scam.
Direct intimidation, he felt.
Yes. And there's even really disturbing footage that, it clearly shows someone trying to break into his car. It's quite clear on the video. And then came the final video, the premonition, recorded just before his death. He says it outright. He knows someone is coming for him to kill him. His exact words, "They're haunting. If I turn up missing or dead tomorrow, remember this van." He goes on, "I think I seen a couple of guys sneak out the side door and into the building when it was parked in the carport this afternoon. I've been causing the city of Fresno a lot of problems recently, which I now regret."
Chillin'. Just chillin' to hear that.
And then, January 20th, 2016, the tragedy. John Lang found dead inside his burning house with multiple stab wounds.
Right. And despite those stab wounds, sources say 3 wounds, the official coroner's report concluded suicide. The cause of death listed was smoke inhalation, which immediately raises a huge red flag, doesn't it? How does someone stab themselves multiple times, especially, as some reports suggest, in the upper back, which is incredibly difficult to do to yourself, and then die from smoke inhalation in a fire?
Yeah.
That sequence just, it doesn't fit typical suicide scenarios. It's very hard to reconcile.
Exactly. And it wasn't just the physical evidence. If you look at his public Facebook posts, in the days, even hours right before he died, you can see his fear escalating. He was writing openly about worrying the police were going to try and kill him, a growing sense of dread.
It's an incredibly disturbing picture. But, for a balanced view, we do need to look at some of his claims skeptically for a moment. We know that intense fear, maybe paranoia, can sometimes lead people to interpret ordinary things as sinister. It's a known psychological phenomenon. Take the dog video, for instance. Could it just be, some guy walking his dog, and Lang's dog runs over to say hello? Dogs do that.
Sure.
Or the loud sirens he thought were harassment. Maybe it really was just a fire truck heading to an emergency. It happens. The thermal camera claim. Some suggested it might have just been a regular film crew setup. Fresno was apparently a popular spot for filming. Maybe it was just B-roll footage being shot.
B-roll, like background shots.
Yeah, exactly. Supplementary footage. And even the dump truck he found suspicious. Couldn't it just be a dump truck doing routine work?
It's possible, yeah. Those are the mundane explanations. So that forces you to consider. Did John Lang's fear, perhaps paranoia, spiral so far that he tragically took his own life, believing he was under attack when maybe he wasn't, or not in the way he thought? Or was something genuinely sinister happening? Was he really onto something dangerous? Because here's where those simple explanations start to feel, less convincing. When you look at some other details, despite that official suicide ruling, there are key pieces of information that just don't fit. They strongly point elsewhere. Remember that van from his last video? The Guaranty Carpet Cleaning van he warned about.
Yes, the van. That's one of the most compelling and frankly weirdest parts of this, because investigations suggest the company Guaranty Carpet Cleaning doesn't seem to be real. No trace of it as a legitimate business. And here's the kicker. The very first online review for this supposedly non-existent company, it appears on January 25th, 2016.
Wait, January 25th?
Exactly. 5 full days after John Lang was found dead. He flags this van as suspicious before he dies. But it essentially doesn't exist online until after he's gone. That timing is incredibly strange and really complicates the official story.
It really does. And there's more. Other things that just keep the suspicion alive, like a petition was started online on change.org, not just asking for an investigation, but specifically calling for a federal investigation into the murder of John Lang. Then there's a reporter Lang had apparently tried to contact. This reporter stated that Lang supposedly called his ex-wife just minutes before neighbors saw the smoke. Was it a final goodbye call or something else? According to the reporter, she ain't talking, which just adds another layer of mystery.
Right, silence can be telling sometimes, or at least fuel speculation.
And this detail is crucial, and you mentioned it earlier. According to that same reporter, those multiple stab wounds, they were in his upper back, not the front. How do you self-inflict multiple stab wounds to your own upper back? It seems almost physically impossible.
Extremely difficult, bordering on impossible for most people, certainly with multiple wounds.
Plus, he was found barricaded inside his house. Now, was he locking himself in because he was scared for his safety, or trying to keep someone out?
2 very different interpretations.
And months later, apparently, while his family was handling his estate, some document turned up stating he was violently murdered. Now, okay, maybe the family put it there, but still. It's described as undeniably strange for such a document to surface like that.
It adds to the overall pattern of oddities.
And one more thing. 2 Fresno police detectives were reportedly present during his autopsy, which isn't necessarily standard procedure everywhere and raises questions in this context.
And, if we zoom out again, you have to consider the context of the Fresno Police Department itself around that time, its history and reputation. Sources point to some pretty significant controversies before the Lang case. These definitely fostered a climate of distrust in parts of the community.
Such as?
Well, for one, a Fresno deputy police chief was actually charged with conspiracy. Conspiracy to distribute heroin.
Wow, okay.
And maybe even more disturbing. A former Fresno officer, apparently after his gun and badge were taken away, went to confront the chief of police late one night. He was last seen alive going into the police chief's home. Later, he was found dead. allegedly a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the chest. But many in the community back then apparently believed it wasn't self-inflicted at all.
So a history that includes serious crime within the department and another highly suspicious death connected to the leadership.
Exactly. It paints a background picture that makes Lang's fears and the questions around his death seem perhaps less far-fetched to some.
So it leaves us wrestling with these two possibilities, doesn't it? Was John Lang tragically consumed by extreme paranoia, leading to a self-fulfilling prophecy of his own demise? Or was he actually silenced, targeted by the very institution he was trying to expose, a victim of a conspiracy designed to end his life and bury whatever truth he might have uncovered? This whole story, this deep dive into John Lang, it just leaves you with this really unsettling feeling. You have the official explanation, suicide, but it just clashes so dramatically with all these weird coincidences, the premonitions, Lang's own words, and the history we just discussed.
Yeah.
It's one of those cases where that line between a psychological breakdown and, calculated foul play, it's just incredibly disturbingly blurry.
Absolutely. And I think what's really fascinating, or perhaps deeply troubling, is how this case highlights the challenge of finding truth, especially when someone claims wrongdoing by powerful institutions. The official story clashes with so many unexplained details. It really makes you think about power dynamics and how hard it can be to figure out what's real when evidence conflicts and trust is low.
So, what stands out most to you listening to this? Where do you lean? Did Lang's own fears ultimately lead to his death? Or was he caught up in something much larger, much darker? Makes you think, doesn't it? In our world now, with digital trails, online accusations clashing with institutional power, how much control do we really have over our own information? And what are the hidden dangers, the real risks of standing up against the established order? We hope exploring John Lang's story has given you a lot to think about. Thank you for joining us. If you found this deep dive compelling, please do like, share, and subscribe to our channel, Horror Docs. We'll be back with more stories that make you question everything.